As much as we all love movies, and the characters within them, television has given us some of the most beloved characters of all time. I'm talking some true icons of pop culture. However, for every Buffy Summers, there was the Scooby-Gang, a character or group of characters who became so integral to the show and popular with fans that they almost wound up overshadowing the ones that the series is meant to be focused upon. You know, your Janets to your Eleanors, your Bobbies to your Hank Hills, the supporting characters who constantly steal the spotlight. In this video, I'm going to take a look at a handful of examples of this, looking at popular shows from the last few decades and seeing who was meant to be the star and who actually wound up being so. And obviously, I couldn't possibly list all of the examples, so be sure to leave your own favorites down in the comments below once you're done watching the list. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's start this list off with a character that I'm pretty sure most of you almost immediately thought of when you saw the title of this video. Michael Scott was definitely an outstanding character in the earlier seasons of The Office, but its side characters were nothing to sneeze at either. And while it is hard to really say that one particular character was over the others, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that if The Office didn't have Dwight Schrute in it, it probably wouldn't have been the success that it wound up being. Played with aplomb by Rainn Wilson, Dwight really helped to ramp up the absurdity that the show is loved for. And while the series arguably began to suffer once Michael exited the show, Dwight was easily able to help keep it afloat in its waning years. Okay, so admittedly we all do love the title character of The Mandalorian, Din Djarin, but come on, you know that I wasn't tuning in every week for him. Nope. I, like pretty much everyone else watching this video, was totally there for Baby Yoda himself, Little Grogu. As soon as he appeared at the end of the first episode of the show, fans everywhere were borderline obsessed with the little guy. You couldn't go anywhere on the internet without seeing memes, pictures, fan art, the works, all focused on this precocious little scamp. It kinda makes you wonder how Mandalorian Season 3 is gonna handle not having him around, now that he's off training with Luke Skywalker. If I had to guess though, the writers will probably come up with some reason to bring him back before the season wraps up. You can't really have your show about a space dad bumming around the galaxy looking for work to support his adopted child if there is no adopted child around. You feel me? How I Met Your Mother's Ted Mosby was a lot of things. A hopeless romantic, a loving best friend, an adorable dork. But he also kinda sucks. Now come on, you know it's true. While we all were invested in his story and wanted to know just how he would wind up meeting the mother, that wouldn't really be the case if it wasn't for a supporting cast that more than carried the show. Chief among them was Neil Patrick Harris's Barney Stinson. While his character's rampant womanizing is somewhat problematic to watch these days, he still managed to provide a large helping of heart, as well as pretty much almost all of the humor. Seriously, ask pretty much any fan of the show who their favorite character is, and I doubt that Ted will be topping anyone's list. And if they say otherwise, they're probably lying. When I think about Scrubs, the medical comedy show that managed to combine the humor of sitcoms with the heart of shows like ER and Grey's Anatomy, the main character, JD, is not the person who comes to mind first. Dr. Cox, as portrayed by John C. McGinley, managed to serve as a major source of humor, as he constantly strove to outsnark pretty much every single character in television history, as well as being probably the most emotionally impacted and impactful character on the show.
Because I'm that good. One more time for emphasis. I'm that good.
On the flip side is the Janitor, who is almost exclusively a source of comedy, as he spends all of his time seemingly going out of his way to make JD's life just that much harder. Easily, these are the two characters who made Scrubs the show that it was. Not to knock JD, or really any of the other cast members for that matter, but without Dr. Cox or the Janitor, it just wouldn't be the same. Parks and Rec was, arguably, the Leslie Knope show, with Amy Poehler delivering a brilliant performance as the character. Of course, that doesn't stop good old Ron Swanson from almost constantly stealing the spotlight. The snide, often brutish and blunt character, brought to life by comedian Nick Offerman, plays as almost a direct opposite to Knope's hopeful, almost wholesome characterization. It could have been really easy for him to quickly become a one-note character, and at times admittedly he is, but Offerman made him a lot more than that, layering in shades of humanity that could have easily been lost otherwise. And the fact that he was an absolutely hilarious caricature of stereotypical manly men characters within media just made him all the more entertaining. Community was a show that started out largely focused on one character, in this case the impossibly handsome Jeff Winger as portrayed by Joel McHale. Then over time became much more of an ensemble kind of show, and that has a lot to do with the greatness of the rest of the study group as characters. But two particular standouts amongst them were of course Troy and Abed, the dynamic nerdy duo whose friendship helped create some of the most astounding moments in the entirety of the show. And arguably the show did hit a pretty big lull once Troy left on his nautical journey with LeVar Burton, leaving us with a lack of soul and charm for at least a little while, until it managed to find its footing once again, allowing the series to come to a strong close. For a show based upon a long-running comic series, The Walking Dead did a pretty good job of sticking to the source material, at least in the earlier seasons, that is. However, one aspect of the show that varied wildly from the page was the character of Daryl, the crossbow-wielding badass played by Norman Reedus. You see, Daryl never actually existed within the comic, and yet, due to popularity with fans, he very quickly overshadowed the character who was supposed to be the main one, Rick Grimes. That's gotta be embarrassing, being outshined by someone who didn't even exist before. But that being said, it is easy to understand how someone with such skills with a crossbow, who looked that good on a motorcycle, could become a fan favorite. Eric Foreman was a cool enough character, I suppose. He certainly did a pretty good job as an audience surrogate for the first few seasons of That 70s Show. However, it wasn't Eric that made that show the runaway success that it was. Oh no. It was easily the supporting cast that did that. Whether we're talking about Kelso's stupid antics, Jackie's rich girl freakouts, or Fez's eccentric mannerisms, pretty much every single character but Eric was vastly more beloved by the fanbase of the show. Except for Randy, the guy who kinda sorta replaced Eric in the final season of the show. Nobody likes Randy, and for good reason. Futurama is my favorite show of all time. Heck, that's where I get my Twitter and YouTube handle from, after all.
Oh, who will make Bender waffles just the way he likes them now?
So you just know that I had to find a way to get it onto this list somewhere. Not that it was really that hard, honestly. The show that started out as the story of Philip J. Fry and his adventures 1,000 years in the future very quickly became The Bender Show. Bender Bending Rodriguez became a fan favorite character almost immediately after the show debuted in 1999. And the writers leaned on this pretty heavily, writing more and more episodes focused on the character. And when he wasn't the focus of the episode, you know that he was at least up to some kind of hijinks in the background. Heck, when Comedy Central was looking to pick up the show for new episodes, and they produced a series of 4 films, 2 of the 4 movies were Bender focused. Bender's Big Score and Bender's Game. So that should probably tell you all that you need to know about who is really the moneymaker of the franchise. Babylon 5 isn't exactly the kind of show that you probably expected to show up on this list, but you know what? This is my list and I never get to talk about Babylon 5, so I'm gonna include it whether you like it or not. While it is technically an ensemble kind of show, Babylon 5 was arguably more focused on its commanders, Sinclair and Sheridan. And as much as fans love those characters, it's the supporting cast that really shines. Of particular note was Londo, Mollari, and Jakar, the ambassadors for the Centauri and the Narn, 2 races with a long history of, let's say, hard feelings between them. Now, watching these 2 put aside their differences and actually becoming somewhat friends was a major highlight of the later seasons of the show. And the end of their arc together is nothing short of heartbreaking. I also gotta mention Chief Security Officer Michael Garibaldi, who was, quite frankly, just plain awesome. Nothing more to it than that. He's just awesome. More people need to watch Babylon 5. It's on HBO Max, and you can purchase it on Amazon Prime and iTunes. Did you know that iTunes is still a thing? Anyways, check it out if you haven't already. There are so many that I couldn't possibly list all of the examples in this video, so here are a few honorable mentions. Huey, Dewey, and Louie from DuckTales overshadowed Scrooge McDuck, Tommy Oliver on the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and Data on Star Trek The Next Generation. There are just so many great supporting characters.